All right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, ninjas and ninjettes? Welcome to the Real Estate Dojo podcast, where we help real estate investors, agents. If you're trying to get in contact with homeowners and produce leads and convert those leads to revenue, then we bring on the podcast, right? And we break down some of the things that you're doing in your business and how, be it through REISift as a platform or just the knowledge that we have in sales and marketing, how you can kind of do some different tweaks and in order to actually, drive the needle forward in what you're trying to accomplish. So today we got Trenton on, and he's out of Central California. He's actually at a junior college studying computer science, football player. And I'm super interested because anytime that somebody's like, doing the things that I didn't know about or do when I was, going through that time in my life, it makes me super jealous and makes me want to like vicariously live through what they're living through right now. So we're going to break it down. Of course, I love my experiences that I had, but I can't imagine if I had started like, 10 years earlier, what would have been I guess it would have been 7 years earlier. But let's bring him on. Trenton, dude, I really appreciate you hopping on, and I appreciate you being vulnerable and telling me your KPIs in front of the world and all that good stuff, man. It's doesn't come lightly when people are willing to share. This industry is very, very mind. So when you're open and you're sharing, it means a lot, dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
For sure, dude. All right, let's break down a little bit to get people to understand a little bit about you so that we can then just kind of get into the business. You're from Cali, you said. You are at a junior college right now studying computer science. When did you enter into college? Like, have you known about real estate before then? Like, I don't know, just give us like the last like 5 years or so.
Yeah. So I graduated high school in 2020. So obviously COVID and all that stuff. But yeah, I didn't really have too much of an interest in real estate up until, I wasn't playing football. I graduated high school. Our first year, we didn't have a season because of COVID. So I had a little more extra time on my hands, and one of my friends who was more interested in real estate invited me on, and we started looking at like tax auction properties, and that's pretty much how it all started. And then basically we started rolling. I started learning more and kind of investing in YouTube U and taking a look there, and learned a lot. And we finally took on our first flip property in September of last year, which I was just turning 20. So I like to say that I got it when I was 19. That's when we started escrow, but we closed when I was 20. So we finished that and got it all sold and done in the end of January. And then since January 1st, we've been going full scale at the wholesaling and fix and flipping. Trying to find off-market deals. So that's pretty much where we've been at. And then during that time, basically in like December, I figured out about REISift, started learning much as possible about it. And that's been our CRM since the start. And I've really, really loved that as well. So
nice.
That's pretty much my story. Yeah.
How did you find about REISift?
I think I first heard about you through Steve Trang's podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That feels like an eternity ago now too. Just time kind of like slowed down. It's weird how the last 3 years have been like time halted, but also like it's like more of like a black hole. It's like it moves so fast, but also so slow at the same time. Really cool. Okay, so first of all, I mean, being 18, 19 years old and like looking at tax auction properties and shit is like, I mean, that's fucking awesome. First and foremost, because like, shit, I mean, 18, 19, I would have been in Alaska at the time. And like, yeah, I knew nothing about real estate then. I mean, all I knew is I wanted like, at the time I wanted like a cabin, like somewhere in Alaska, and I just wanted to fucking disappear. But like everything was so expensive, and I only made like 17 grand a year. So I was like, okay, well that's impossible. Right. And that's how a lot of people get stuck in that. And they're like, oh yeah, like there's no way I can afford any of that kind of stuff. So, you're like, okay, well, let's just go fucking, go look at tax auction properties and whatnot. That's fucking awesome. So curious, I mean, you guys closed on this property. How how did you guys like decide, like, how did you guys figure out the financing aspect of things? Do you guys just finance yourselves through family, or did you like learn about hard money lending? How did you guys get, because that's really what stops a lot of people. Like most people know, I can bid on like foreclosures, and they hear about those things. But they're like, oh, well, I don't have the money. And that's what stops them.
Yeah.
Did you have an advantage there? Or?
Yeah, I think we definitely did have an advantage there. We were lucky enough to have a seller that wanted to use seller financing. So that helped us a lot, along with we still put down a down payment on it, and we needed the rehab costs. So we were able to have family support us there and kind of fund that, which was, extremely helpful.
Yeah, but like, here's the thing, like a lot of people, it takes the ask, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people would never go out and actually even like talk to family about what they're doing because they're scared that they'll say this, that, or the other. And so like, a buddy of mine, Bill Allen, he runs this thing called the 500K challenge, where that's like going out and raising money. And a huge part of that is going in your sphere of influence. In fact, I tell people like, hey, if you're looking to try to like get started today and you don't have any data, fine. Open up your fucking contact card and just call everybody and let them know that you're in real estate. Figure out how you can leverage the people around you. Hey, do you have a house, or do you know anybody? If you see anybody, let them know that I buy real estate. Oh, by the way, if you just so happen to have some money laying around, we can put that money to work too. Like just building that. You already have love and trust from these individuals, so leverage that. It's not using them, it's leveraging, for the better gain for, with both between everybody. And so what I really loved about that though is that you guys were, again, keen enough to talk about like seller financing and breaking that down. Like these are things that people, even now that I know that have been in real estate for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, right? They haven't even delved into actually having those kind of conversations because they're too scared about it. Right? They don't understand the numbers. They don't understand, well, there's a structure behind it. How are we going to pay this individual? And they make all these excuses, where sometimes it's just so nice when that very first deal is one that, has a lot of this complexity behind it, because it makes a lot of things easier on the backside. And then we just got to kind of work to repeat it. That's super awesome, man. What did you guys end up doing, making off the flip?
It was, for a first deal, it was definitely a home run. We ended up, I think, so our lender, we ended up splitting half of the profits with them.
Very cool.
So we ended up netting, I think, about 130 on it. We got about
after split?
6. Yeah, after the flip. Yeah. It was in Modesto, so a little bit northern California. But yeah. So we took down about 65,000 ourselves on that one. Yeah.
That's awesome,
give
dude.
us a nice budget to work with this
budget,
year.
Dude. Like entering into college with fucking 60 grand, between two people. Like most college students, like they go like work the summers for like maybe 5 grand, just to like be able to have some beer money and stuff. And like, that's freaking awesome. That's so awesome. There's a guy, I don't remember his name. He was on a Bigger Pockets podcast quite a few years ago. I remember listening to him. He's out of Canada. And when he was in college, he ended up being the guy who bought like an 8-plex in college and then rented to all of his college buddies all the rooms and stuff. And then by the time he even got out of college, he already had a portfolio of like 24 units or something like that by just buying and renting to people he knew in college. And it was just like, he was worth over $1 million before he even left college. It was like just so awesome, just being able to have that kind of like time. Time is a very interesting thing, because even now, if we look at the market, I look at some of the deals that we bought locally here in the last, 2 years, or before the last 2 years rather, and 4 years ago we could buy, an 8-unit or 16-unit building for, anywhere between 400 and 800 grand. And now that would be like way more. So like people take for granted the ability to just take action now and just be consistent with it, because you never know what tomorrow is. And if you take action now, and you just have your breakdown of the types of deals that you want to buy, and you take action on them, they might be a little high now, right? Like you might buy a little bit higher now, but if you stay consistent with it, you're going to end up buying really low here. And it's no different than like this, consistently putting into the stock market. It goes ups and downs, but as long as you stay in it for the long run, then you're good. Obviously with real estate, we have the great advantage of having a really good buy criteria, but I love it, dude. That's super freaking awesome. And so now fast forwarding to where you're at now, You have 2 VAs in or team members in the Philippines. You got your partner. Is he another? He goes to the same college as you and stuff, or is he out?
No, he goes to a college back in my hometown, Fresno State. So
okay,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And were you guys like childhood buddies, or was it? How did you guys?
We actually played football together through middle school and high school. He ended up stopping after high school, and I'm still going. So.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then so it's a total of 4 of you as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. And you're using REISift from cradle to grave, marketing side, prospecting side, as well as lead management with the task system and stuff like that. And then you're doing bulk dialing, is it right now? You're not doing any sort of niche sequential stuff.
No niche sequential at all now.
Okay. Which, it is what it is. We can talk about that. It's part of one of your questions in here. Okay. Now, so now we understand where your business is at. You're also using, what was it? You're using call tools for your dialer, and you're using batch leads, I'm guessing, to pull data.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're not doing any SMS through it. You're just pulling data through it?
Just pulling data through it, yeah.
Okay. So we talk about that. I mean, there are other places that are a little bit cheaper that you could be pulling data through instead of having to pay for an SMS subscription and, data provider. But totally up to you guys there. Using Google Drive, which I love that you annotated in here. A lot of people, like, for whatever reason, don't use that. Air call for, I'm guessing, just for your lead follow-up and stuff.
Yeah. So we started off doing the Sensei flow for the first couple of months, and then we switched to bulk dialing. Yeah. Gotcha. But yeah, then we obviously have the annual subscription, so we just keep on using it. Just still using it for acquisition and lead management and whatnot. So.
Okay. And we actually do have another integration with smartphone coming out, which is going to be really, really nice because they have both the single line, sales dialer, but they also have a bulk dialer like call tools, and it's going to be integrated to where, like, if that dialer ever even attempts to dial a number, that's going to update on our end. So it's literally going to be
awesome.
Everything. So it's going to be really cool. But okay, cool. So, give me an idea of the flow right now. Like, like a standard day or a standard week, you guys, let's say it's a Monday morning, right? What is the flow to prep for the week? What is from getting the data to uploading the data, marketing, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So I start on Sunday, because obviously I need to manage my time pretty wisely. So Sunday I spend a lot of time preparing for the week and maybe wrapping some things off from the previous week. But usually that starts with pulling lists for the week, pretty much pre-foreclosure, bankruptcy, divorce, and I can't even for bankruptcy, divorce. There's one other I'm missing for some reason. That we pull weekly. But we pull those weekly. Batch leads I think updates their data monthly, so it's not really like we're getting that ahead, sadly. But yeah, pulling the list, making sure everything's clean and ready to go into the dialer. Skip tracing anything new that I feel like needs to be skip traced, whether that's some stack 2x stuff, stack 3x, stack 4x. And then uploading that to call tools. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but that's pretty much a daily basis thing, just uploading that into call tools. And now, that's pretty much it.
Are you uploading REISift and then sending call tools, or are you uploading REISift and then exporting and uploading?
Uploading into REISift and then with a direct integration, uploading it to.
So you're sending it straight to you. And when you're doing this, are you creating a new call campaign in call tools each time? Like, you're creating a new bucket, or do you just have one bucket in there and you're just sending everything into it and just dialing?
We just have we have multiple buckets for each campaign, and those campaigns correlate to like whether it's ouchies, code violations, or stacked 2x.
Okay, so basically you use so you're using it's kind of like our OG model, where it's like you have your straight high equity stuff, your stack stuff, and then your vexation based list separately. So you segment it all out, and then they call in base of in order of priority of probably stacked, then ouchies, and then any high equity stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm actually going to log into your account real quick while we're doing this, just so that I can add any sort of insight that I can. Just make sure this email that I have is the same one. Okay, it is. Cool. Okay, so you guys have about 76,000 records or so in here now, and I just want to look really fast. I love when I click on a records page inside of REISift and I actually see statuses updated. There's like, it just gets me excited because when we don't see statuses updated, it means nothing's been done. Okay, I just want to look. What I want to look at is your filter presets, right? I want to see kind of what is the flow that's going on, and is the flow that you just told me essentially mapped out to where you can easily do it. And it looks like there is a form of a flow here. Did you end up taking the data to dollars challenge?
Yeah, so I just took that. We definitely are not using that. I just set it up, so yeah, that is not. It looks better than it actually is. I'd say everything below that flow is kind of what we actually use.
The like equity, niche combos, ouchies, and stack folders.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, if you understand and you're using it, you know, the way that makes sense to you, then that's great. What we want to be able to do is we want to just make sure that, especially when we're doing bulk in the front of our operation, that we just make sure we have the filters in place, that we track how many times we've actually attempted those bulk attempts. And then what are the ones that we're missing, right? Like who are the people we're not reaching, and decide where those need to go. So at the end of the day, you know, for your operation as of right now, we really only need like, you know, 3 folders to handle this flow, right? Like what needs to be skip traced, right? Which I would keep open. I wouldn't restrict it to vexation based or anything like that. I would just keep it super open. And I'd say, hey, this is the stuff that I just uploaded. It's never been skip traced. And I'm going to skip trace it, right? And then what is the stuff that's been skip traced in that first location and we didn't get any results from? Cool. That stuff for now, because of my time, I'm just going to skip trace. I'm just going to send that direct mail. I'm not going to worry about skip tracing a second location. And then anything that I do get phone numbers for that's never been marketed to yet, cool, send to the dialer. And honestly, because you guys are using a bulk dialer, you got 2 VAs on there and you don't have a ton of data, I wouldn't even prioritize that. I'd probably just throw it all in the one bucket, and I would just make sure that I go from 0 to nothing. But what I would do is I'd be keen on watching when I upload that data and I'm generating leads. I want to be keen on when a lead gets generated, what was it from, right? And just kind of keep an eye on that and do a weekly check on, okay, we generated X amount of leads. You know, how many of them are from divorce versus, you know, pre-foreclosure versus this. And once I understand where at least, let's say there's going to be one of them that's like from 70% of them is in that thing, right? Now, this is where we start kind of delving into a little bit on the motivated lead versus a lead kind of scenario. And really, I don't like motivated. What I like is qualified, a qualified lead versus, you know, somebody who's just interested in selling. At the end of the day, both of them are equally valuable, but we definitely want to make sure that the people that I'm talking about, where I'm tracking, okay, well, which ones are coming from where? If you're just throw high equity in there, you're going to get all your leads are going to come from high equity, right? Like, because everybody's going to say they want to sell their house, but it's different from qualified leads. And so I want to track where my qualified leads are coming from. And in that, this is where we start saying, okay, well, I'm uploading, let's say, you know, 1,000 new prospects every single week, and we're calling through those. You know, we call through it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and then we check. You know, we're generating leads. I noticed that out of the stacked, the commonality is that they're foreclosure and divorce, right? It's like, cool. Well, now I have an option. Do I become first to market with foreclosures, or do I become first to market with divorces? And so you're going to choose one of those niches that's producing a majority of your, at least 70% of your lead volume, and you're going to become first to market with it. And this is where, you know, you can continue doing what you're doing with uploading from, you know, exporting from batch and uploading to SIFT. But with that first to market one, we want to try to go directly to the source as much as possible, right? If it's divorce, we don't need to go and buy that stuff. It's so easy to get that stuff from a county, you know, because that's legally put out there, right? Hey, these people are getting a divorce. And so we can pull the list from somewhere, but ideally we go to the source, and we have our VAs go in there and every single morning, daily, pull that list, get it uploaded. They should do that. You shouldn't have to worry about it. And then that same day, boom, call through those. Anybody that they don't reach, you know, like call, text, voicemail, the whole niche sequential flow. Anybody they don't reach that day, boom, stage, sends direct mail, right? And so it's a daily habit, right? Every single day. If there's 15 of them, cool. You call through 15. You don't reach them, you send direct mail. And then you still call the follow-up ones, but we're being very aggressive with those first to markets. And so meanwhile, this big cold calling campaign is happening, right? You're dialing through all those, let's say it's, 10,000 records that you're working through right now in call tools. We're going to continue dialing through those. But after a certain amount of dial attempts, of course, we're not going to reach a certain amount of people. Those certain amount of peoples, we want to make sure that we skip trace those ones for sure in a second location, because bulk was your main thing. You need to make sure you're using at least 2 different skip trace providers. Are you doing that now?
We're not doing that now. That's something we need to definitely get on.
So let's definitely add that into the equation, because what happens is when you skip trace from somewhere, you're going to get about a 90% response rate from the first skip tracing provider. But after calling through that list, you're only going to reach between, even like after 3 dial throughs, you're only going to reach upwards to 5%, and depending on your phone numbers and stuff like that, you could be upwards of 15% of the prospects, not the skip tracing. So if it's 1,000 prospects and it's 3,000 phone numbers, then you're going to reach about 5%, so 500 homeowners, right? Roughly of the total quantity. Or I'm sorry, that was not the right math, but you get the point, right? So what we want to make sure that we do then is we say, okay, cool, we didn't reach say 700 of these homeowners, so let's skip trace those 700 in a second location, call through it again, because after a second provider, you're going to reach another roughly 3 to 5% or so, depending on if those 2 skip tracing locations are pulling data from the same location or not. And the reason why is just because data providers, everybody's like, oh, hey, this skip tracing provider is better than that one, and this, that, and that. And it's like, it's not really true. It's just they're all, every one of them is going to have, a certain amount of correct and a certain amount of wrong numbers. And some of them prioritize because they have algorithms in the back end, which you can understand because of being a computer science major, right? We pull the phone numbers in from these different providers, credit bureaus, this, that, and the other. And then there's an internal algorithm that says, okay, well, based off the information I got from here, and here, I prioritize this as being like a better phone number than this one. So they might be getting in 50 phone numbers, but they pluck out 3 to 5 to 10 of them of the 50 to say, okay, these ones are the best ones. Let's give this to the customer. But the other guy might have a better algorithm, and so it might prioritize a different one. But this guy's algorithm, it's better, meaning it was the right phone number for the owner, but they just switched phone numbers yesterday or a month ago, and so this guy's more current. And so, or this guy pulls relatives and it prioritizes the spouse. And so it's just good to have that diversity. But after 2, it's a waste of money, right? Because after 2 providers, you're pretty much going to get, all of the phone numbers that you could possibly get, for somebody. And at that point, now it's like, cool, well, we had 1,000 prospects. We called through it one time. We got, 200 or so correct phone numbers for correct homeowners. Then we call through, we skip trace in a second location. We got another 200, but I'm still left with like, 400 to 500, people that I never reached before. And at this point now it's like, okay, well, it could be because it's cold calling. They need to be texted. And so now we can either pull that over, just use batch even, since you're already paying for it, and just send them, an SMS campaign for 3 attempts, right? And because that's the way that they want to be heard. We got to make sure we're marketing not in the way that just appeals to us, but in a way that the potential customer wants to be heard. It's no different than, if I was watching TV and I'm not interested in, because like I'm fucking 5'7", $140, like football's not my thing, I would get annihilated, right? And so like they put a football ad in front of me, I'm not going to be as interested. But they put a UFC, featherweight like ad in front of me, I'm going to be interested. And so that information. But I don't watch cable. So if they're going to get me with the ad, they need to do it on YouTube, not on cable, right? And so big marketing companies understand this, right? Because they look at the patterns. We don't have the advantage of the information that, through the internet, that these, other companies have at scale. But what we do have is we have age demographics. We have the, location in which they're living, and we have phone numbers. We know that they're mobile or they're landline. And so we have to use the information that we have available to us to say, hey, I called through it. I have that insight. They didn't answer. I'm going to assume that out of the 500 people I didn't reach, probably another 5% of them or so are going to want to be reached through text messaging because that's their persona. And so I'm going to send it through that, and I'm going to get another 200 some people or whatever, 50 people. And then after a while, you chipped away at it, and now I'm left with 250 people that want to see a direct mail piece. And then there's always going to be a percentage of those people that would just never respond to you ever, but they might go online and search and Google you and find you that way in the future. Or they might need online ads or something else like that, blanket marketing and things like that. But some of this stuff is easier to adopt in and kind of tighten that leaky faucet before the other. And so for you right now, it seems as though that answer is cool. Let's make sure that we simplify the flow a little bit on the bulk dialing aspect of things, find the niche to be first to market with, make sure we're skip tracing in a second location on the bulk dialing. And these are all little tweaks that can yield, 2, 3, 4 times the response back on the same data and same money that we've already spent, right? And so that's really important. So let me reload. Apparently, well, can I scroll? No, I can't. I got to reload my email here because I wanted to pull up. No, screw it. Okay, so let me look here real quick. I want to look at, I'm going to do some filtering in your account just really fast. I just want to get an idea. I'm going to load just for those. In fact, let me share my screen. That way, if anybody's on YouTube, they can just see it. If you don't mind, you mind if I share my screen on your account?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to narrow down here. And what I want to do is, because first to market or niche sequential marketing is important in 2 different ways. Number one, it's important because we want to make sure that the people that we want to get in contact with that has a higher chance of needing to sell to us, like that we're being intentional with spending that extra time and effort on them, whether it be your VAs doing that for an hour in the morning and then switching over to call tools or whatever the scenario is, right? And so I'm just going to filter real quick by like a parameter just to see if you're hitting the data, because I think it would be important that you do, right? So let's just say, for example, absentee no, vacant property yes, a really common one that a lot of people leave to the wayside. So I like to see that. There's 727. We have statuses here. Let's go ahead and now do numbers no. Okay, those ones sold, so you updated that data most likely through a bulk upload. And then let's just go ahead and add a status. But sometimes it's not about the masses, it's about the majorities, right? Like that one property, that one phone call. And we just want to make sure that we have those leaky faucets handled. So 59 of these so far have been skip traced without any results. And so these 59, I would want to make sure that we have it skip trace in a second location. If it's not, and if I still don't reach it, then this is a great example of the data that I would want to start digging into some relatives. And you can just have a task where you do like 3 a day, something really small, because these 59, when we're talking about from a revenue perspective, especially being in Cali, these 59, if you reach 2 of these people a year, right? I mean, that could be an extra 300 grand, or whatever in revenue. So it can make a big difference with that small amount of effort when you're dealing with, depending on where properties are located in their criteria. Some of these were skip traced, 90 days ago. Some of them were skip traced a week ago. And some of these have never been skip traced, right? Which I could find that obviously by just doing skip trace no as well. And so like these ones, 43 of them have actually never been skip traced, right? And so this is where we want to make sure that we use those flow presets, right? To say, okay, hey, here's like some criteria. I want to make sure that I'm always, making sure that these are skip traced and entering into my funnel, and nothing's forgotten about. And so that's just something that I would, look into in your business there. I'm going to do one more filter here, and I'm just going to do, I should have just left that one open. We're just going to do absentee yes, vacant property yes, numbers. Actually, I don't care if it's vacant. Numbers no, skip trace no. Let me see what's there. 8,000. Let's narrow it down by no statuses real quick. Property status, do not include anything. All right, so 7,000 or so. So depending on what we're doing in our business, some of these are stacked as well, actually. Let's just narrow down by that too, because I can see some of them are stacked. 206 of them, right? And so a good example of 206 records here that should be in our cold calling campaign right now. They should be skip trades and they should be being marketed to. And I can click on this one that's a 4 stack here, and I can just real quick look at the activity log just to get an idea of the last time that it was handled. Looks like this definitely should be on your being cold called. It was inherited in March 1st, right? Or 27th. And so, I mean, inherited list is fantastic. That means that, hey, probate's done, everything's done. This person just got this property, and most likely it could be free and clear for them, depending on the situation. Actually, it's on the free and clear list, actually. So, yeah, tired landlords, they've owned it for a long time. So what happened here is someone passed away. I can almost guarantee this is the scenario. Someone passed away. They tried to list the property. It didn't sell or whatever. It went through probate, and then someone inherited it. And, who knows what's going on now? Maybe they're living in it, or maybe they still want to sell it, but it's in bad condition, which is why it never sold here. Or they had high expectations when it was listed because of the way the market was, but now the market's kind of shifted a little bit. And so maybe now there might be some urgency to say, hey, it could continue going down. Let me make an offer. So yeah, definitely make sure that we have those filter preset flows set up to where we're capturing, if you're going to do stack data, make sure that we're getting those records skip traced that need to be skip traced. And to be honest with you, like with the way your operation is right now, I would be focusing, pretty heavily on having, just primarily absentee owners that, that you could be calling through and just, trying to do that volume, but then getting that niche put in place. Because a lot of these other ones, like at the end of the day, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. At the end of the day, right, if you have, divorce or, foreclosure and these other kind of vexations that you're uploading, if you just focus on that specific area, that specific market, right, and you're calling this, John Doe, and John Doe picks up and they say, yeah, I'm interested in selling. Like, okay, what has you interested in selling? Well, I'm going through a divorce, right? Do you necessarily need the divorce list to get to that same solution? No. What it does though is it allows us to say, okay, well, instead of marketing to the 60,000, I'm only going to market to obviously the segment that is going through a divorce. But when you're doing bulk dialing, what I would prefer people do ideally is kind of keeping that bulk dialing, relatively open. And then any of that niche stuff, such as, the stacked divorce, then we would do that through niche sequential in order to actually control it better and understand what's going on. Because, again, it's kind of like you're wasting, some valuable time and money, throwing them into the bulk dialer. And a lot of times there's just not enough for it to make sense to be in a bulk dialer, like new divorces. How many new divorces happen in Cali, on a weekly basis? I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I'm sure it's a pretty high population. It could be a good amount, but I can't imagine it being more than, wherever you're marketing at, like 100 a week or whatever, That's really manageable, daily. And so those are the kind of things we want to think about, right? So what I would do is I would streamline things a little bit, delete out the filter presets you're not using, right? Keep the noise mitigated. It's kind of like having a bunch of like comments in your code that you don't need in there. It's just there for the fun of it. It's kind of useless. And so just do that consolidation and streamline the flow to, hey, this is stuff that needs to be skip traced. Just a simple folder, right? Needs skip traced a folder. And then inside of that, you can have multiple presets or even just one preset that says, hey, this is the criteria. It's relatively open. If anything's in here, it's never been skip traced. It needs to be skip traced. That automatically goes to your bucket for send the call tools. First attempt, you send the call tools for the first attempt, update your bulk attempts, and then just track it that way and go up to 3 attempts. If you still haven't reached anybody after 3 attempts, kick it for a second, skip tracing, put it back in call tools, call through it again, another 3 attempts, 3 to 5. And then if you still haven't reached them at this point, decide direct mail or SMS, or out of that bucket of people, narrow down deeper and say, okay, niche sequential, right? And so hand it over. And really that's it. I mean, other than that, your flow is pretty good. Let's talk about some KPIs real quick. What is your KPIs looking like right now?
Yeah, so right now we're looking at about 63 leads to contract. And then we've so far had 100% contract to close rate. But it looks like we're gonna probably lose a contract probably tomorrow. So that'll dwindle down a little bit, but
okay. And so let's talk about dials and answer rate and stuff. Do you have that available?
Yeah, I have it up in a spreadsheet. Let me just pull it up real quick.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I know connects wise, we're about like 75 connects to a lead. That's just like general connects, not even connecting to a person. Could be a voicemail or something like that.
Oh wow! So I mean, that's pretty good. So 75 connects to a lead.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how many dials it takes to get to a connect?
I'm not sure on that actually. I think let me take a look at my numbers here. I think it's about our connection rate's like 3. It averages around like 3 to 5% on a daily basis. So
okay. So let's dial that in a little bit, right? What I would like if we were to come on here and do an update in like 3 months or so, what I would like to be able to do is ask like, hey, give me your KPIs. And what I'd love to be able to hear is, I want to know the amount of dials. I want to know the amount of wrong numbers from those dials. Like I want the whole breakdown. It doesn't matter if it's in bulk or not. Like we want to be able to know like, hey, and the biggest things that I want to know is like how many dials right now through bulk dialing is it taking for you to get like a correct number? And what's that percentage? And then versus how many dials is it, to a wrong number? And then how many dials essentially for no answer, which the no answer one is going to be something that's a little bit harder in call tools to quantify. But what you can do is you can just assume, right? Like, hey, I dialed 6,000 and I spoke to, 50 people. 10 of them were correct and 40 of them were wrong. So that's my percentage. And anybody, if I dialed and I only spoke to 50 people, or maybe there's 150 that picked up, but maybe half of them or whatever were wrong or were dead. Then out of let's say it was 1,000 dials. So 1,000 dials, 150 connects, 50 of them were leads. The difference between the 1,000 and the 150, so that would be what, 850. 850 would then be no answers, right? So we just consider that no answer percentage. You see what I'm saying? So whatever the void is between the two, that's no answer, which is gonna make your no answer rate like higher if it was compared to if it was niche sequential. But that's okay because a baseline is a baseline, right? And so it doesn't really matter if it's super accurate or if it's super inaccurate, which I guess is the same thing as being reverse of accuracy, but it's a baseline still is a baseline that you can go off of to improve, right? And then in the future, you can always, fix any anomalies. But with bulk dialing, we can definitely surely get how many dials, the system made to how many people actually you spoke to how many were correct number, leads, not interested in and so on. And the reason why is because we need to be able to, you mentioned something inside of your, before you came on here, about like motivated leads and stuff like this. And a 63-to-1 is totally normal for, for bulk dialing. But at that point, really, we want to understand how many, what's happening with the other leads, right? Because that's where we're going to have the big bang for our bucks is in follow-up, not on our immediate call through. But what it allows us to do then is understand, well, how do we improve the 63-to-1, right? If that's what our ratio is right now. And the only way to do that is to understand, well, how many dials does it take to get a correct number? How many of those correct numbers that ultimately end up being a lead? And then figuring out what the problem is within the problem to meaning the KPI that truly needs adjusted in order to have an increase there. Because it could be getting the no answer rate decreased by 10%. And how do we do that? Well, maybe we change our phone numbers every 3 days, or maybe we do X, Y, or Z, or maybe we call it a different time of the day, or right? So there's little things that we can do, but we need to know that percentage in order for us to have something to base off of, to do the one change, give it a week, see what the results are, give it another change, give it a week and see what the results are. Because ultimately what we want to get to is we want to get our correct numbers cheaper, and we want to get the lead to contract ratio, lower. It could be the answer is also like once we get all those other KPIs and we're like, well, our lead to contract ratio didn't decrease. However, we have a way better connection rate. We are getting more contracts, so we're getting more leads, right? But it's still the same average. Well, then the answer is, okay, well, let's now look at a different data set, and maybe we can find a data set that's more motivated. But again, it also then revolves back around as, is it worth doing that? Because at the end of the day, we're getting correct phone numbers, right? And so my follow-up pipeline is fucking amazing. So what are we doing on that side to make sure that we can convert people, of these people that are saying that they're interested, but ultimately end up becoming not interested in. So that's when we would really want to delve into what's our lead, management KPIs. Like right now, for example, are you currently tracking how many people were a lead, but then fall out of being a lead, like a percentage, like, hey, out of the dials for lead management, let's just say you have 100 dials today and somebody picks up and they're like, oh yeah, I'm no longer interested. Take me off your list. Like, are you tracking the percentage of how often that happens?
No, we're not. No.
Yeah. So like, that's a really important metric, right? Because when we start talking about motivated leads, the only way that we can tell is we gotta point the blame somewhere when it comes to, well, is it a prospecting issue or is it a lead management issue? Because if they're converting out of not being a lead 2 weeks into us doing follow-up with them, then were they ever a lead to begin with, right? Or should they have ever became a qualified lead, right? And so it gives us, again, a way to look at, well, where's the problem within the problem here? A lot of people would assume, okay, hey, it's my list, or hey, it's my skip tracing provider, or hey, it's this. They make the assumptions of what it could be rather than actually like looking at a baseline and then digging into the parameters around that baseline that affect the baseline to then decide on where do I need to fix, right? And so those are the important things to consider there. So what I would say as of right now, I'm going to open up to you on just any general questions that you might have, but I like to kind of keep it to where we have some actionable steps to move forward, and then getting you back on another call. So the first thing is that we need to dial in like a really good flow when it comes to the KPIs on the call, bulk dialing. I want to simplify the flow with bulk dialing, and I just want to right now you're uploading new data, but you also have existing data that you've never called before, right? And it's kind of counterproductive. I'm uploading new stuff, but I'm not hitting the old stuff, and so I definitely want to prioritize, new data over old data, right? But that old data is still sitting here. You got a lot of vacant data in there that's not being hit, right? That's old data. And so we want to make sure that we're still hitting, especially since we're doing bulk dialing, the stuff that's in there that we've already paid money on before we start paying money again to bring in new stuff, unless it's in a first to market capacity. But we can't be first to market in 6 different things, right? We got to choose one and narrow down the process, dial it in, get a KPI on it so that we understand, hey, for divorces, I know for every 20 divorces, I get a deal, right? That's what it is, because now I know if next week I'm going to get 10 divorces, I'm not going to get a deal, right? And so we want to have that predictability, in our business. So we're going to clean up the filter presets. If you need to, you can totally reach out to, well, you've been a user for a little while, but you can totally reach out to Samantha at REISift.io and get scheduled on a starting like an onboarding process to kind of help you through getting your account kind of buttoned up after going through the challenge and stuff like that. She can totally help you with that. So streamline that process a little bit so that we can intake that new data, get it skip trace, get it over to call tools, and really you should only have like 2 or 3 folders there. And then over the next month or 2 months, we're going to track on, okay, out of those leads that we are sending in there, where's 70% of the vexations coming from? And then we're going to decide on which one of those to be first to market on. And then we're just going to have our VAs for at least one of them. They're going to upload that data from that vexation, and they're going to call it for like an hour in the morning, and then they're going to switch over to call tools and bulk dial. Cool.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I know I kind of like mixed it up there. You just want to repeat back to me that so that I can make sure I expressed it better, because I kind of bounced around.
What, that last part, or just all of it? Or
yeah, just kind of like executables. Like, what are the kind of like the 3 main things?
Yeah, so simplify the bulk dialing flow, create some predictability with the with leads, as far as like what leads work best and how many of those leads are converting to a contract. Tracking KPIs, how many number of dials are, converting to correct numbers, wrong numbers, leads, no answers. And then I kind of put it down as like net leads, but like how many of those leads that were first contacted, they said they were a lead, but then are they staying a lead, or are they not staying up, or are they falling out of being a lead? And then the niche sequential, how many of it, or having a VA do that for an hour or whatnot. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And obviously just take it's like 5 or 6 things, but just take the one that's easiest to execute on right away, which honestly would probably be the, flow part. And then work yourself and say, okay, over the next course of the next month, for the first week, I'm going to work on this. Second week, I'm going to work on this. Third week, I'm working on this. And fourth week, by the end of that 4th week, boom, we have all this stuff in place, right? Don't think you got to get it all done today. And at the end of it, we should have like a pretty systematic flow, right? We should be able to basically draw it as if it's my 7-year-old daughter drawing an art photo of it, right? It should be that kind of simple. There's no nice grains in the hair, and the eyeballs are kind of like big and round and not accurate. Like a 5-year-old's photo is what you want your business to look like, right? It's very obvious, what is what, unless they really suck at drawing, but you don't want it to be super complex. And awesome. Okay, so what kind of questions do you have for me? Anything that I can answer for you specifically that you're struggling on?
I was kind of gonna ask a little more detail about the having a VA for the sequential marketing. Do you think the best thing to do is have just a VA do that for an hour, or do you think hiring another VA for that is too much overkill, or do you think that would be helpful? Or
so it really depends on on the operation as a whole, right? Like what kind of revenue that we're generating on a monthly basis, or really quarterly basis. I like real estate to be a quarterly kind of revenue kind of metric, but it would be based off that. You definitely have data that can be worked. Like there's no doubt about the fact you have data that can be worked. If you were to hire an additional team member, what I would say is that like immediately, I see opportunity that they could start calling. And I think pretty quickly you can have them doing first to market with, with your understanding of especially as REISift as a platform, but, they wouldn't be short of work. Right. So the question then becomes, do you guys have that, 3 months to 6 months of runway for that VA in order for it to make sense, where if she's not producing anything at minimum, right, she's collected a bunch of correct numbers for you for follow-up, and in the intrinsic value that she's doing besides generating revenue is also worth, the money and time, but there's other things that we didn't talk about, such as, for the stuff that you send direct mail to, once that direct mail comes inbound, like return mail, because for every direct mail that you send, between 2 to 5% of it's going to be return mail. And so that 2 to 5% needs updated in REISift as return mail, and somebody's got to start researching those siblings in order, to get some more phone numbers to call, right? And so I think that that's a really important thing to consider is making sure that we're hiring at least a couple months in advance from the time frame that we're going to need somebody, right? So you got to start that process, at least a month prior, and then have them hired at least 2 months prior so they can get working in and used to your operation and be an asset for you. But more importantly, making sure that you're putting them in the highest producing role as soon as possible. And so a good example of this is, Jaime out of Houston. One of the things that he did when he hired his executive assistant, right? There's a lot of things you can have an executive assistant do as soon as you hire them. I mean, there's so many things that you can hand off to them, but a lot of those things aren't income, producing like trackable, tangible things. They're just convenience items. Like, hey, every morning I need to make sure. Can you make sure that you pre-order my smoothie from X, Y, or Z? Right, something so small that's intrinsic for me. But again, that doesn't produce any more money to pay for the bill that I'm paying for an executive assistant. And so what he did is he said, okay, cool. Well, the very first thing I'm going to have you do that'll take a lot off of me, but also generate revenue is on a daily basis, all the people that we don't reach via our first to market probate calling, you're going to make sure that you pull those down and do the direct mail, handwrite the direct mail and make sure it gets sent out, right? Because what is that going to do now? I'm taking off my chest a new item, but I'm also creating opportunity for new inbound revenue. So if they close 2 deals from that in the first, 2 months, then her whole salary is paid for through and more through that action. So anytime that you're hiring somebody new into your business, always try to make sure that you're putting them in the most the role that's going to generate the most right away. And for callers, for like prospectors, a business needs to look at it from the perspective of making sure that they can communicate with the people that you're not reaching as quickly as possible, so that at least you're getting a yes or no, so you know where you need to spend your money, because money obviously saved is money earned. Or I need them to do another activity that is taking something off my plate that is still income producing, such as researching siblings, as long as those siblings end up getting cold called, right? Handling the direct, exporting and uploading the direct mail to the prospects to the platform, and then sending them the call tools, these things that create more time for you to then do more follow-up, for example, right? So things that can have a direct quantifiable return on investment, right? Essentially what I'm getting at. So if for you guys, you're like, cool, well, we got the $5,000 and I feel like there's a lot they could be doing, then let's go ahead and do it. As long as we quantify and we say, okay, over the next, 3 to 6 months, we know that through the correct numbers that they gained for us, through the direct mail that they sent for us, and through these things, they were worth $5,000. If right now that doesn't feel true, like in your heart kind of scenario, like the fruit shit, then don't do it, right? Streamline what you're doing now, and maybe have one person on the bulk dialer and one person off the bulk dialer doing the niche sequential. Because as of right now, what we know for certain, I didn't filter by this, what we know for certain is that every single week you guys are dialing through phone numbers, at least 2 or 3 or 5, attempts. I don't know how many you're doing in a weekly period. And you're not reaching a handful of those individuals. This is not happening, right? Yeah. And so those handful of individuals you're not reaching, the second VA could easily be the one that's, hey, cool. Anytime that we call through a list 5 times and we don't reach anybody, we skip trace second location, we call through it another 5 times. All those individuals, like I say, it's 250 individuals that now we've no longer reached. Boom. I don't know, Charles, I need you to go ahead and call through those 250 records this week. I need the numbers to verify if they're good or bad. And then if after you call through them, 3 times this week, send them direct mail, right? That way we know, hey, that's being buttoned up and we don't have that leaky faucet, and we know we're doing cradle to grave properly when it comes to our prospecting efforts, right? So there's a lot of things you can do. You can redivert somebody, you can hire somebody new in. I just don't like hiring people new in when we still have a lot of things that we could, clean up, right? Because it ends up making more overhead and then more complexity and ultimately more things that you individually need to handle, right? And we got to be careful with how we, like you said earlier, like utilize your time while doing especially being an athlete as well as in a science degree is very it's a lot of time dedicated, right? Cool. Yeah. So, but when it comes to the niche sequential stuff in general, as of right now, I would say don't focus, too much on it. Focus on getting the stuff that's generating you leads now, getting that streamlined, getting things going. And once we get that streamlined, I feel more confident that you fully understand, the ratios of what's being executed there, right? The deliverable that's happening, the market response KPIs. Then we're going to have, okay, cool. We need to know what we want to focus on first to market, choose that one vexation to be first to market on. And then we can have that question in our mind. Okay, well, who do we hire and when? And you could always reach out to us and we can help you out with that, questions wise.
Awesome.
Cool. Awesome, dude. I think that's pretty much it, man. I think you guys are either way doing fantastic. The fact that you even have a cold call to leads ratio, KPI in place is really, really good. And a lot of companies just don't have that even. They just cold call and they don't even freaking know. It's like, I just know that I'm calling. The fact that you have 75 connects to one lead is really good. Usually, I would say like 150 to 350 connects, is pretty average there. So you're doing really good there. That means, I think depending on the rest of the numbers, what I was really trying to figure out is kind of like how many leads are generated a day, and then kind of quantify that to figure out how we can increase the amount of contracts we're getting a month. But the best way to do that, again, is just hitting those same individuals you're hitting through cold calling in another way, rather than adding more data in. It's like, how do we hit the same individuals that we've, that we know we haven't reached, right? But fantastic job. Keep up what you're doing already, and we'll just button it up a little bit, streamline it, and then Mason, we'll send you the calendar link if you don't already have it. I think we have a separate calendar link for scheduling reschedules, maybe. But either way, we want to get you on in the next 3 months or so. At this point, it'd probably be like the start of the year or whatever. Or at the end of the quarter in December timeframe or whatever. And we want to get an update from you to kind of see where you're at now, what has changed, what do the KPIs look like now versus today, or then versus today, right? Any last questions for me, man?
No, I think you covered everything I wanted to cover, so appreciate it.
Awesome, dude. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Again, I know I kind of spit out a bunch at you as I'm kind of like churning everything through my brain, but I think we have a good action plan in place here to execute over the next month. It shouldn't take any more than a month to do what I just mentioned, right? So if you start, if a week goes by and you haven't done anything yet, then you're already like behind, right?
Okay.
So don't let it take more than a month, and then we'll get you on the books for like 3 months from now, and I look forward to hearing about some more deals, dude. I'm really excited. Appreciate you again, man. And we'll see you in 3 months.
Sounds good. See you then.
Thanks, Trenton.
Thank you.